Well, I have just got back from the mystery movie that I was talking about in the last video. I mentioned that there was this mystery movie screening that was going on at my landmark theater, and it was happening tonight, and I was like, bored. I was figured, there's not really, I'm not really doing anything tonight, so I figured, I'll take the risk because I was hoping that the movie that I was going to go see would be the movie Exit 8 because basically the runtime was 95 minutes of like the mystery movie, and the Exit Eight's runtime was 95 minutes. And so I was thinking, like, with my brain, I was thinking, like, you know, it kind of adds up. Although the only thing that didn't add up was the rating, because the rating on the website was 14A, which is basically, I think, rated R, I'm pretty sure, in United States. But the rating for Exit 8, like at the theater, was PG. And I was thinking, like, it might be Exit 8 still, but it might not be. I was sitting there in the theater going, please be Exit 8, please be Exit 8, please be Exit 8. And then the movie started playing, and I was like, damn, I done wasted my money. It is not Exit 8. The movie that it was this movie that I did hear about prior because I was like basically online on like Reddit and stuff and like hearing what people were like thinking the movie could be, and there were people also like me thinking it could be Exit 8, but it also could be this movie called, hang on, there's like pop-ups on my screen, I gotta get rid of those, it's very distracting. But basically there were other people like me online that were also thinking it could be Exit 8, but there were also other people thinking it could be this movie called Hunting Matthew Nichols. And I'm gonna be honest, I never really heard about the movie prior to that. Like, I quite literally heard about the movie this week as it was like, on the mystery movie screening thing. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take the gamble because it could be Exit 8 or it could be Hunting Matthew Nichols or whatever. And so I was like, screw it, I'm gonna go see the movie, and whatever it is, I'm gonna watch it. And lo and behold, it was Hunting Matthew Nichols. And when I saw the movie pop up on the screen, I was like, damn, because like the whatchamacallit, the company like logos and everything started popping up because, as you know, Exit 8 is made by Neon, and or it's being distributed by Neon in like, worldwide. It's being distributed by Neon. And this movie, when it's like the company logos started popping up, I was like, I don't see no Neon. I don't see no Neon. And I was like, damn, it's not Exit 8. But this movie was bananas because basically I was sitting there thinking, like, should I leave? Like, this is the first movie I seriously debated like leaving the theater for, because I was like, this ain't the movie that I wanted it to be, and I didn't really know what this Hunting Matthew Nichols movie was up until I started searching online to see what other people had to say the mystery movie could be. And so I was like, should I leave? And I was like, nah, I already got my large popcorn, my large drink. I was like, I'm in too deep. I'm sitting in this theater. And I'm not gonna lie, for like the first hour of this movie, it was pretty dang boring because I was sitting there thinking, like, it was like, damn. It was like I was seriously debating leaving the theater, but I was like, nah, I'm gonna see it through. I'm gonna see what's going on, because basically the story of this movie is that, obviously Matthew Nichols is like, basically he goes missing in the movie. Like, him and his friend Jordan, they randomly disappear one day. They go to school and everything, and I think they disappeared on Halloween. Yeah, it was Halloween when they disappeared. They go trick or treating and all that, and then they never returned. And everybody's like, where the hell did they go? What happened to them? And so they're just like, well, I guess we'll never know what happened to them. But there ends up being this tape that the main character, who seems very familiar to me, like, I look at her and I'm like, I feel like I know who that is. Like, you know what? I'm actually probably gonna look it up real quick. Okay, so the person who plays Tara, which is the main character of this story, is played by this actress Miranda McDowell, I think is how you pronounce that, or McDowell. I'm not too sure, but yeah, name like never really is not familiar with me because I think she's only done like a couple movies. But yeah, I was sitting there in the theater thinking, like, I feel like I know who this is, but I did not know who she was. She just kind of looked similar to other people who I have known. But yeah, basically, her brother Matthew Nichols ends up going missing on Halloween along with his friend Jordan. Both Jordan and Matthew, they go missing, and Tara is basically like trying to figure out what happened to Matthew. Like basically the whole movie is kind of, or like, how should I say this? Kind of like 95% of the movie is shot in like a documentary style movie, while the other like 5% is actually filmed in like a, standard typical movie form. But I was kind of bored, or I kind of wasn't really into the idea of the whole movie being shot like a documentary. Like that wasn't really my thing. I was kind of like, that's why I was sitting there thinking like, damn, like should I leave or should I sit this through and see what this movie has to offer? And I was like, I already spent my $20 on my drink and popcorn. I was like, I'm in too deep. I'm sitting in this theater. And so yeah, like the first hour goes by and it's like nothing really happens. She's interviewing people, and like she's interviewing her mother and like this other woman named Pam, and she's like, basically just interviewing people throughout like most of the beginning of the movie to like see what they have to say about what could have happened. And they were like these conspiracies of like maybe they just like got lost somewhere because the last time they were seen was during Halloween. And there were like a couple of witnesses saying like, yeah, I saw these two kids on Halloween walking into the forest. And so they were like, all right, maybe they, fell off a cliff or something in the forest or something like that. But she's not buying it. Like Tara's not buying none of this. She basically over the course of the movie gets like consumed by this like, thought of like what happened to my brother. It was like, is he alive? Is he dead? Like, where is bro at? And it's been like 20 years. Like literally he disappeared when she was like, I think a kid or something like that. Or like it was a long time ago when he disappeared. It's been like 20 or so years. And she's just had this thought ever since of like, what happened to my brother? And literally, I swear to God, literally this woman tells her like halfway into the movie or like 75% into the movie, she's like, don't get consumed by this like thought of what happened to your brother, it's like move on. And literally like one of her friends is telling her like, yo, I'm making a movie about this because like I said, most of the movie is shot in like this documentary type form. So the guy or like who is her friend is shooting it as like a movie. And so he's like, yo, this is a movie, you gotta like come to like find peace with yourself and like things like that. Because she's like, well, how does this movie end of yours? And he's like, it ends with you finding peace. And literally the next scene is like, I'm going into those woods and I'm finding out what happened to my brother. And I'm just like, I'm just shaking my head. I'm like, girl, you did not learn nothing. This woman is telling you, leave it alone. Your friend is telling you, leave it alone. And she's like, nah, I'm going into those woods. Nothing's going to stop me. And I was just like, this girl gonna die. She's cooked. Like, because basically, earlier in the movie, there are these tapes that were, like, discovered in a cabin in the woods. And basically, there was this camcorder that Jordan and Matthew, they had this camcorder, and it was discovered in a cabin in the woods, and like their fingerprints was on it and everything. And there were these 8 tapes that they like found basically pretty much, and it was like them shooting like their own like kind of movie thing. They were into the Blair Witch Project, I'm pretty sure is what it was called. They were into that movie, so I think they were trying to like recreate like their own movie or like their own version of that movie. And so this is a horror movie, by the way. And when I was sitting there watching this movie, I was like, I don't see how this is a horror movie. I was like, nothing about this movie is like scary, like, I mean, sure, there's some like, startling scenes here and there, but I was like, nothing about this movie is like, scary or anything like that. Until they go into the woods. That is when shit starts getting real, because, she gets so consumed by this idea that I'm going into those woods, nothing gonna stop me, and I was just like, what is this girl doing? Everyone around her is telling her that this is a bad idea, you're gonna die, you should not go into those woods, and she's like, I'm going into those woods. And so yeah, she ends up bringing one of her friends with her, the guy who's obviously, making the movie and everything. They go into the woods together, and they come to this, basically what they're given this map. And the map is of the forest, and it's the map that the woman Pam ends up giving her because she finds out that Pam is in fact a liar because there wasn't 8 tapes that they found, there was actually 9 tapes that they found. Yes, that is right. There was an extra tape that they hid from basically everybody. They found 9 tapes, they only said they found 8 tapes, so they end up watching the 9th tape that they found. And the 9th tape is of Jordan and Matthew. They discover this cabin in the woods and they start performing this satanic cult. And yeah, basically they summon demons and shit and they die. Like they watch it, they watch the tape, they see all this happen, and they're like, damn. It's like they're not still alive. They are dead. Very much they are dead. And it's like, he's dead, so it's like, what purpose do you have to go into the woods? It's like, seriously, that is like, it's not that this is a bad movie, because I've seen so many people just shitting on this movie, and I'm just like, it's not a terrible movie. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the first hour or so is kind of boring, but the last hour or so, like, everything, when they go into the woods and, like, when they start to, like, uncover the truth of what's going on, that is when the movie starts to, get kind of interesting. You're like, okay, you're like starting to get invested in all that. And then, like, basically that is the turning point of movie being boring to movie being somewhat interesting. And then the movie goes from somewhat interesting to what the hell did I just witness? Because basically, like I said, she is so like, I'm going into those woods, nothing gonna stop me. They go into the woods and they find the spot that they're given on the map because this woman's like, here's where the cabin used to be in the woods. We tore that shit down. Cabin don't exist no more. And so they're like, they go into the woods, they follow the map, and they find the place where the cabin should be, but there ain't no cabin. No cabin at all. It is just simply trees, forest, that's it. No cabin. And so she's like, well, I guess they tore that shit down. I guess they weren't lying. I guess I'm coming to, peace with the fact that my bro is dead. Until the next scene. Because she performs the cult and everything in the forest. Nothing happens. And she's like, I guess I gotta accept the fact that my bro is dead. And that is that. And then the next scene happens where she gets up in the middle of the night and then she's like looking around and stuff. She starts walking like off into the distance and then immediately comes back and is like, yo, I found the cabin. And as soon as she said that, I was like, yeah, they dead. They are very much dead because I feel like there's, again, a reason why everyone was saying, don't go into that cabin. Don't try to find that cabin. If you saw, your bro and your friend, or bro and bro's friend die performing this ritual, don't go into that cabin. And so she finds the cabin, obviously, and she's like, hey, yo, I found the cabin. And her friend's like, what the hell do you mean you found the cabin? And so they walk, like, literally 5 feet. Like, they literally probably only take, like, 20 or so steps. Boom, cabin. And it's like, okay. So she, again, starts performing the ritual, and then it actually starts working this time. The pendant that she has is moving. Sorry, the pop-up is still on my screen, and it is very annoying. But she's, like, talking to her, or what she thinks is his brother. And I'm like, nah, I'm not buying it. I'm like, nope, that's not her brother, because she's all like, isn't this you, Matthew? Is like, if it's you, say yes, or all that. And the pendant starts moving in the direction that she said yes. And so she's like, oh my god, this is my brother. And I'm just sitting there like, nah, something's going to happen. Something is going to happen. And lo and behold, you start hearing, she's like, if you're here, make a sound. And I was like, oh, hell no. Hell no. And so, I accidentally shut my mic off. So she's like, make a sound if you're here. And obviously, shit starts rattling, sounds start happening, and you're just like, oh no, hell no. And then the sound stops. And then you're like, what's that? What's going on? And then, lo and behold, her ass gets dragged out of the cabin by this freaking, like, what the hell was that noise? Am I tripping? I just heard like a noise. I don't know if if it was on the, if you heard it too. But anyways, she gets dragged out by this demon, and she's just like, yeah, that ain't my brother. And I'm like, no shit, that is not your brother. But at that point, it's way too late. Your asses are cooked. Cooked, I tell you. And so, yeah, basically, gets dragged out by the demon. And obviously the friend is like, what the hell is going on here? He starts freaking out, starts running around. And it's still kind of shot in like the documentary type of fashion, which again, I thought was pretty solid how they did like the whole like, documentary type thing, at least in the ending, because at the beginning it was getting kind of boring having like the documentary type thing, but in the ending I did like the whole, documentary type of thing. So he's running around and shit, freaking out, and then he's like looking around, and you see like the camera obviously is like falling down. He's looking around, and behind him is literally like this demon girl looking behind, or like behind him, looking at him, and I'm just like, yeah, he's cooked. He is cooked. So yeah, basically actually, I don't know if he ends up dying because there is an after credit scene that we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, he ends up discovering this like tree of like possessed ghosts. I'm not entirely sure what that was supposed to be, because he's like looking up at this tree and there's like bodies and stuff of like people, and I'm just like, what is going on? And so yeah, they end up, I don't think they kill him, because the post-credit scene, there is a post-credit scene. It is of the other friend that didn't go with them, because there's three of them, and so the post-credit scene is the third friend who didn't go with them, because the guy's like, yo, if we don't come back in the morning, like, call the police, call somebody. And so they obviously don't come back because they very much die. And so the third friend ends up coming to the hospital or whatever, because they ended up finding the guy. The girl is gone. She is very much dead. The girl, like Tara, she's dead. But the guy ends up being discovered because I think what happened was the demons like take over him, or like they possess him, because like he's in the hospital bed obviously with like bandages and stuff wrapped around him, and then he starts like shaking and stuff like he's possessed. So I'm like, it was like, I don't think he's dead, but he is very much possessed. And what I like is that at the end of the movie, they show you what happened, because they watch the tape halfway through the film. You hear what happens, but you don't see what happens. And what I like about it is at the end, when you're finally discovering like these demons, these creatures and whatnot, it actually shows you what actually happened. And obviously, the brother and his friend perform this ritual. They end up getting possessed, and they end up not really dying, but like, well, one of the friends most definitely is dead, but the other friend just kind of like walks away. And it's like, yeah, he is most definitely possessed. And so, yeah, that is the end of the movie. And when I saw that, witnessing that on screen, I was like, what the hell happened? Because again, I would have had no plans on seeing this movie. But I'm kind of glad I did see it, because that ending was bananas. So, yeah, basically, long story short, if everybody is telling you don't go into the woods to see what happened to your bro, you probably shouldn't do it. But yeah, anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this video. We are only 32 subscribers away from 700. We're at 668, so if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe. And I will probably still review Exit 8 when that comes out on the 10th of April, so you can look forward to that review. But yeah, this movie actually did surprise me, because like I said, I was debating walking out of the movie because I was like, this ain't the movie that I wanted to see. But I'm kind of glad I stuck it through and saw it, because that ending was crazy. If I had to rate it, I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. Like, it was pretty good, and the ending was absolutely insane. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. If you've gotten around to seeing Hunting Matthew Nichols, you guys can let me know what you thought of it, because again, I don't know what to say. It was pretty crazy, to say the least. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.